Hey everyone, how's it going? I hope you're all doing great and following the 3H's of the channel. And in this video, it's all about some more local stuff, local legends, local cryptids, all that kind of thing. If that sounds like something you're interested in, definitely pull up a stump with me and let's jump into it. Thank you for watching. This all took place a few years ago. I was at an old manor house which has been converted into a hotel. If I recall correctly, it's called Combe Abbey, and it's here in the UK. So, I was 19 years old. I got this hotel, and the receptionist says that they have overbooked. She says that we can have our refund, and she will let us use the old disabled room. And as such, I'm forced to share a room with my younger 16-year-old sister. So we both walk down a dim-lit red corridor to our room. The room looks like that nobody has been in it for over 20 years. It has old 70s decor, etc. I go into the room first and throw my bag onto one of the beds. My sister shuts the door. As soon as the door shuts, the old TV whines and turns itself on. We both look at each other, then back to the TV. The TV begins playing this creepy weather report from what I can only assume is the 1970s. I say F this while looking for a cable to the TV. I spotted the plug in the corner of the room below a small window. I bent down and I yanked the plug from the wall. The TV turns off. While standing up, I happened to look out of the small window. It was a misty but well-lit evening, and the window gave a good view of the courtyard, the drive up to the hotel, and the surrounding moat. A shadow caught my eye when I was looking down at the moat. What I can only describe as two black bony limbs claw their way out of the water. I call my sister over to come look. We both stand there, frozen in fear, as a disheveled black creature drags itself out of the water. Now in full view on the water's bank, a creature that I can only describe as some kind of half-decomposed kind of humanoid abomination. And then it sprints off into the distance. Without even saying a word, we both grabbed our stuff and left, running back down the corridor. I spent the night sleeping in the well-lit bar, regardless of the angry staff. We left the following morning. Nobody believes us, but my sister now freaks out and refuses to speak about it whenever I bring it up. I used to live in this town in Texas, and there was this road out toward the countryside called Hand Road, and everyone said that it was super haunted, that they seen all manner of crazy things out there. And after this, I almost believe it. It was 2018. It was only 10 o'clock at night. My friend lives on Hand Road. He was also my drug dealer. I wanted to pick up some ecstasy from him. I had no ride to get there, so I had to walk all the way. I start my walk, and it's very uneventful, very boring, and just dark. And I had heard the stories, but I was mainly just thinking about other things. On the way there, the only thing that was creepy that happened was that I almost got attacked by a dog. Luckily, a random car came by at the perfect time and scared it away. But still, that was a little creepy, but not quite what I was expecting walking on this road. But anyway, I finally get to my friend's house. I score what I'm after, and I talk a bit with them, and then it's time to head back. But on the way back, everything seemed a little darker. And I know you might be thinking, oh, well, it was later at night, so of course it's going to be darker. Not like that. The feel of the road was darker. Now this road runs right by a set of train tracks. I'm walking along, a little paranoid, but still high spirits. And then I see something on the train tracks out the corner of my eye. It's a really big black figure. It stands up. It has to be 6'5", maybe taller. For some reason, no matter how hard I try, I am unable to turn my head and look at this shadow person. I feel true fear for the first time in my life, but I think to myself, do not run. Just keep walking. Pretend it isn't there. But it's following me, almost strafing with me along the train tracks, staring at me. I just walk as fast as possible without making a scene. It was the longest walk of my effing life, just to hit the main street and get off the road. After I get off the road, everything changes. Everything is normal again. The figure is gone. The fear is gone. It's all normal. I walk home as fast as I can, but I don't even have it in me to do the drugs I just bought. Now it's true, it could have just been a really tall person on the train tracks, but after all the stories of this place, and all the strange things that happened, all the things people saw, I can't help but believing that this was one of them. I live in the Philippines, and this is something that happened when I was 23 years old. I was an office worker at a sugar factory. It was currently milling season when this happened, so everything is running 24/7. I was assigned the night shift. Around 11 p.m., I get hungry, and I decide to buy some food at this nearby town that's maybe about 3 minutes walk. I have no vehicle, so I have to do it on foot. There's a bridge at the entrance to this little town. As I walk on the bridge, I heard the sound of someone snorting or coughing something up. I look around. I don't see anyone, but I look behind me and I see this apparition. It was a kid about 7 to 10 years old. It was a boy. He was really pale, like grayish pale. He was floating in the air. He was holding his neck, and it was leaking some kind of black blood. I screamed and ran, not knowing what else to do. I reached the center of the town in no time. One of the local eatery cooks asked me what was wrong. Why was I screaming? I tell him everything that I just saw. One of the customers overhears me. It's an older dude, probably in his late 60s. He tells me that when he was younger, probably just a kid, there was a well-known rumor, a local legend, I guess, that happened just before he was born, that the people who built the bridge did something barbaric. They found a young kid, and they ended his life and mixed the child's blood in with the foundation of the bridge. This was done as a sacrifice by the people who built the bridge, and the older man told me that he knew somebody who was now long dead, who had seen the people who did this, and seen the people who ended the kid and mixed his blood into the concrete. He was threatened into silence, and the whole thing was covered up. Usually, I don't pay attention to local legends or little stories like that, but the fact that I saw the kid before I knew it happened tells me that this one might be true. Long story short, my town has some weird stuff going on with portals. Usually, they appear as roads that you don't recognize, or sometimes you just end up far from where you were going. I didn't believe this for the longest time until I was a junior in high school and was driving around with my best friend. He was driving. We knew where we were. We were in a town about 15 minutes away from where we lived, but it wasn't like we had the area memorized. We were just cruising around some roads. Nothing exciting was really happening. We turned down some road that both of us didn't really recognize, and then suddenly, it's like we blinked and poof, we're 15 miles from where we were. Instantly, we turned to each other. Our jaws dropped. We were wide-eyed and thought pretty much the same thing. Dude, what the hell's going on? We were not here just a second ago. What happened? Did we teleport? We were just in Lyle, and now we're in a whole other town. We drove all the way back to where the road was that we went down, absolutely convinced that we had found the portal, and the road we turned down suddenly wasn't there. It was a fenced-in field. I'll never forget how wild that was. Even more insane, I don't think we talked about it too much past that night. It's so common here. I don't even remember it until every about 5 years. I'll tell it to somebody, and then I'll think on it for a brief second and be like, huh, that was pretty wild, and then go about my day. In the early 2000s, I moved out to the Idaho Panhandle. I got cozy in my new house pretty quickly. My neighbors were also luckily super friendly, and I made friends with them as well. By this point, this part of Idaho was still pretty untamed. This was before all the housing projects and everything. It was a lot of dirt roads and wild dogs, and the neighbors warned me of this, that the dogs are not just strays, they're actually wild feral dogs. Over time, conversations ease into other topics of things to watch out for, and then, just casually, they mentioned, yeah, and there's a lot of UFOs here, huh, and I just kind of laughed about it, and I said, wait, what? And they said, you know, weird stuff flying in the sky. I'm no nut job, but... And then they tell you the most insane UFO stories you've ever heard. I'm like, oh, these people are crazy, but they just don't show it at first. A lot of locals, though, admit to seeing a thing or two, quotes, over the years. They just don't really get it, but at this point, they don't think too much on it because it happens so often. I'm still thinking that this is like a local joke or whatever for the new people. But skip forward a few years, 2005, I was goofing around with some friends after dark, and one says, hey, look over there, over the field. And there is a textbook example of a triangular 3-light craft, orange lights, completely silent. I say, hey, wouldn't it be crazy if it flew over here and we got a better look? And I quickly regretted saying this. It banks and starts to drift toward us, still silent. We start running a few blocks back to my house. It's following us. We do get back to my house, and we spend a few minutes having a back and forth to confirm that what we saw was what we saw. After a minute or so, we go look outside and see the craft drifting away over the fields until it's eventually out of sight. Moving forward, things were relatively uneventful after that. I didn't see a whole lot more weird stuff in the sky, although there's not a whole lot of goofing around in the middle of the night after that either. Over the years, tons of development occurs, housing projects, roads, etc. There's less fun stuff, no more wild animals, fewer lifelong locals because time passes, they begin to die or move away. There's no more back in my day I saw stories. Years go by. One day I see a weird dot in the sky. I go out back. A lot of people are in their backyards, all pointing and mumbling, saying, "You guys see that?" And someone else says, "Yeah, we see it." It's a weird, giant black orb floating in the sky in broad daylight. It isn't supermassive compared to like the sun or anything, but relative to regular sky things, it's pretty big, not small. It's completely immobile, just floating there. And then suddenly, it seems to change from black to metallic or chrome or mirror or something, whatever you want to call it, and then just zooms off in less than a minute and clears the entire horizon. In the late 90s, I went hunting with my brother and my girlfriend's cousin. This was pretty far in the woods in Maryland. It's about 5 p.m. when we set back to camp, since it was going to be dark soon. Cousin Jack is the one to start the fire and get the dinner ready. We set up this little trap. It's a line up some empty metal cans from one tree to another, so if one big animal comes through, it would be heard from the campsite. I was up late reading some book about serial killers. My brother and cousin Jack are basically dead to the world. My clock reads 2 a.m. when I start to hear the trap rustle. I start hearing chatter from conversations that make no sense. Literal statements or sentences like, "Are we lost? Where are you, Jerry? Damn it, Gary." Just layered on top of each other. These sound normal enough, but there's like a thick accent over them, like somebody is English as a second language and is drunk and has a speech impediment or something like that. It sounds funny, but that's exactly what it sounded like. I managed to make out a shadow of the figure speaking the phrases and sentences. It seems to be a tall person, or at least the outline was, a few inches above me, and I'm 6'1". I call it he because the voices I was hearing it speak in were clearly male. I rolled down into my sleeping bag in the tent, pretending to be asleep, as I see him moving about outside. I keep one eye squinted open as this is all happening, just in the event that he figured he wanted to try and cut the tent open or something. No such thing happens, but I hear hands grazing up and down the tent like he's getting a feel for what it's made out of. And then it speaks again. "Oh my God, George." I hear it shouting in that same drunk-like slurring. This takes place in the span of 15 or so minutes, and then nothing happens. The next morning, we're taking turns getting washed up when cousin Jack comes storming into camp, very pissed off. "You guys think you're effing funny, don't you?" We ask him what he's talking about. He says that we were out in the woods, calling to him like we were in trouble. We argue that it's neither of us. I don't bring up what I saw last night. Later in the morning, though, I'm down by the river and I see this really screwed up looking deer. The best way I can describe it is like its legs were in a fight with a weed whacker and lost. The face of this deer looks misshapen and incredibly deformed. I stare at the deformed deer, looking down for a few moments, before I see it walk away, very nonchalantly. I don't tell them about the messed up looking deer either, but they said that I was calling out to them from the river. I obviously tell them that I was doing no such thing. Later in the day, there is this patch of woods that we're traversing through, and suddenly I begin to feel dread. My brother and cousin Jack felt it too. If I wasn't armed, I would be pants-shittingly terrified of where I was. That is where we see this deer again, the wrong-looking one. It gallops off into the distance like it didn't want us to see it. Cousin Jack follows it, thinking that this is no life for a deer like that. We might have to shoot it. He fires off 4 shots in the deer's direction. 2 of them very clearly hit the deer, but it didn't react. It didn't do anything. It just kept walking off. After a few minutes, it disappears into some trees. We trailed the deer for a bit to see if it keeled over, but we never found a body. As we're headed back to camp later that afternoon, we hear a man scream. The weirdest thing about it was that it appeared to be in several different directions all at the same time. It really put us all on edge. We're aiming in the directions of the screams, but they're all blended together. Different voices, tones. They seem to be perfect replications. We make a run back to camp after this. We're very unsettled and uncomfortable with what's happened all day. And as soon as we're back there for a few minutes, we hear the cans knocking about. All three of us head for where we heard it, but we can't find anything. The woods are too dark. My brother shines his flashlight in the direction he said he heard some chattering. We see this tall figure. It looks like an abomination. Something combined with a human. There's no way else I can describe it, but it was built like a bodybuilder. It's muttering these phrases, and it's covered in deer fur along the shoulders and the back. The sighting lasts maybe 5 seconds before it darts off back into the woods when me and cousin Jack shoot at it. We're keeping watch all night after that. The next morning, very early, as soon as daybreak comes, we pack up and are going to get the hell out of there. We're getting everything when it dawns on us that we're hearing something or someone call out to us from deep in the woods. It sounds like that this thing can't decide which voice he wants to use. We dart off for the truck, which we drove to get out there, and this is in broad daylight when we see the figure a final time. This time, though, it's watching us leave. It's tilting its head like a dog would while trying to figure out what you're doing. I've been back out to those woods after this. I keep a knife and a gun on me at all times, but I've never had anything this bizarre happen. A long while later, over a decade, I learned about the legends of the goatmen, crawlers, and of course, skinwalkers. I don't know if what we encountered was any of those, but some of it seems to fit the bill. Some people mention about a smell, but there was no such thing during our encounter. Not only that, people talk about how some of the speech is garbled together, but these were, like I said earlier, perfect replications of phrases that it probably heard. We'll probably never find out exactly what it was, and to be honest, I'm fine with that. I don't want to see that thing again. So, let me know which one was your favorite one down in the comments. Do you have one of your own? As always, I have an email in the description below that you can send them to if you'd like to. Also in the description is a PayPal and a Patreon if you would like to donate to the channel that way. And of course, super thanks here on YouTube. And after the one from the Philippines, I decided to look up if that was a thing in other countries where they would do that. And apparently, what it's for is to attach a spirit to the building, the bridge, or what have you, that it can protect it or hold it together and prevent it from falling down. And that's not really something I've ever heard of, obviously. But I do think that there are probably better ways to ensure that your bridge isn't going to fall down than doing that. But anyways, it's wild to learn about the things that other cultures do, or the things that carry over from like hundreds of years ago that sometimes still get done even today, even if they're like terrible and shouldn't be done. But with that said, if you enjoyed the video, then be sure to like and subscribe. And I post on Wednesdays and Sundays usually, so you get 2 videos a week. And yeah, I'm just kind of rambling now, so I will end the video here. Thank you for pulling up a stump. Thank you for watching, and have a good week.